Hi, I'm Justin Deering. Welcome to my talk on setting up Docker on a Windows desktop without Docker desktop and without a Docker license. So basically the problem here in many situations, if you are a corporation of a certain size, I believe it's certain money or certain number of employees, you cannot use Docker desktop without paying for a license. Now my company, my employer Nudethic, does happen to provide us with Docker licenses, but we are also consultants, and sometimes we get set off and have to use a laptop of one of our clients or a virtual desktop of one of our clients, and they don't have Docker licenses on machines. So anyway, we're going to go through the setup over here. Just some prerequisites. You want to have a Windows machine. You need to have WSL set up on this laptop so you can do Linux containers. You need to have Hyper-V support and container support as well set up on the lap. So you need those features set up as part of Windows if you're not a local admin. You need those features set up, containers, local containers, and you need WSL set up. One unprivileged user can install all the WSL distributions they want. So let's start off with the basic situation here. Okay, I'm a Python developer. I'm in Visual Studio Code. I have this blank project over here, right? And I want to start developing Python stuff, but I want to do it inside a container, right? Honestly, the easiest way to do that is make sure you have the Devcontainer feature installed. Okay, so install this feature and just go and build a Devcontainer. Okay, so we're going to say free line. Let's say ZSH. Let's say we want ZSH. Keep default. Dependabot. Okay. And what this is going to do is this is going to create the Devcontainer. Now, here's the thing. If you don't have Docker installed the first time, and actually that's how I got Docker for this is going to set up your default WSL distribution. And if you don't have a WSL distribution set up, it's going to sit there and say, hey, do you want to install WSL distribution? And it will install Ubuntu, and it will install Docker in Ubuntu. And basically, your Visual Studio Code will be set up to use those for Devcontainers. And if you ever want to access those Devcontainers over here, you can just go here and we can go into Ubuntu. Okay. I'm sorry. And boom, there's our other containers. I have some WordPress containers running. That's how I do this, right? So it's going to go inside of here. But anyway, like I said, when you did this, the first time you did this and restarted the container, it would just set that up for you. Okay. So that's your first setup over here. Just very simple. Just go in Visual Studio Code, create a Devcontainer, any Devcontainer you want. It will set up Linux for you. Now, you cannot access this without doing a bunch of other socket files and configuration. You're not going to be able to access this Docker from outside of your WSL distribution, but this is good enough. If you want to play with containers, just go into Ubuntu and just do it that way, plain and simple. That's the best way to do this, right? Now, what about Windows containers? Now, I have it set up actually on my machine. As you can see, I have it set up for Windows containers, and my Docker over there is over there. You can install what's called Docker Community Edition, and it's free and it's available on the Docker website. They hide it a little bit, but if you just Google or Bing or whatever, use your favorite search engine, look for Docker Community Edition, you can find your way to get a zip file that has just two binaries, docker.exe and dockerd.exe. Now, how do we install this, right? We just unzip the file over here. I'm going to show you how to do that from the command line, and I'm not even going to. So actually, I'm going to show you the website. So you're going to end up, if you search for Docker Community Edition, you'll end up over here. And you'll end up going to this link. You'll go download you'll go all the way to the bottom. You'll download the latest zip file of the days. Now it's 27.5.1. And then you can run these PowerShell commands. I'm going to do it old school. I'm going to do it from the command shell. Okay. Because you can unzip files from the command shell, because Windows ships with two Unix utilities, curl and tar, but it's not Linux tar. It's BSD tar, which for whatever reason can unzip a zip file, which is why they went with that. It's BSD tar. Anyway, so XVF, I already downloaded it. So, okay. And we're going to, third time recording this demo. Okay. Now, and then you can go add that to the path. So add it to the path, which I already have it set up in the path, as you can see. But you can just go in the registry. You can do this via PowerShell. You can do this via reg.exe, but I'm just going to show you the registry version. And you want to you can either go to HKey current user / environment, which is the path just for your user, or if you want to add it to all the users. HKey local machines, current control session management environment. It has all these variables, including this one path over here. And there's a million ways. And you see C:\Docker in the path over there. And that's the way to permanently add it to the path, right? And that's in the path, right? So then we're going to go C:\Docker3/Docker D. Oh, it's actually going to make that folder for me. Okay, so I actually made that in a separate folder. Anyway, and you can say -register service, that will register the service. And you can see this Docker runs the service. Okay, it's running as a service. You can go in the service list over there, and this is a service you can start or stop just like IIS or any other Windows service. You can also just run Docker D by itself. And where the configuration for this stored? The configuration for this is stored in, well, actually, program data / Docker. And this is, you need to be local admin to get these files over here. And so basically to install this, you're going to definitely need local admin to install the Docker. But if you have WSL in your system already, you can install Docker on your WSL system for your Linux containers. And we need UAC activation to activate this. And we're going to show you how to, we're going to show you how to configure this for here. So you can set up your Q configuration options, which are rather important for Windows containers. Config daemon.json, right? Okay. Now the important thing is here you make a group called Docker users. Okay. Now this group called Docker users are the users. So basically, if you have UAC set up in your machine like I do, so even an admin user doesn't by default have privileged access, they can't run the Docker command. So you have to sit there and go and make this file and add this to the Docker users. There's another setting you might want to set in here that you want to look into. If you want to run 19 Windows containers on a 2025 on server 2025, or basically like Windows 11 Insider Edition, basically, to get to that version, you're going to have to set up Hyper-V isolation as opposed to process activation. And there's another setting you want to set in here, but there's a bunch of settings. The main setting you're going to want to set in here, you're going to want to set a group called Docker users, right? And then you're going to want to type local group Docker users add. Over here to add the user, it's going to say 30 user. And then so that's going to make the group. And that can be any group name you want, but I want to stack with convention. And you can say group name, and then you can say local group over there. Okay, and that's going to sit there. And obviously you have to run that as the admin over here, so you'll have to go do that command over here. By the way, that weird thing I'm pasting the keyboard is actually OBS Studio. How to install OBS Studio when get it the Microsoft Store thing. It's not a password. Don't worry, not sharing my password over there. Okay, no such user group, some user. So anyway, you type that command, you set that up, and then you would register that service, and then you would type, ultimately after you register that service, you would type start service to start that up, and then you have Docker running. So that's how you get on Windows. So that's how you get the Docker daemon. So the Docker daemon on Windows to do Windows container, the Docker daemon on Linux via WSL. Those are the two things you're going to want to do. You have some other options here I'm going to show you, and one of them is called Podman. Okay, and I have this set up. It's not running now. It's going to tell me the Podman is not running. But basically, to install Podman, and once again, you can go use Winget or something to install it more easily, but you can go install Podman. So Podman is a open source reimplementation of Docker. It's a daemonless reimplementation of Docker. It is sponsored by IBM. I'm not part of the group that's sponsored it. I'm part of a Neudethic company that is owned by IBM, but I don't know the Podman people at all or anything like that. We tend not to. My group tends not to deal with Podman, but I think it's a perfectly fine tool to use. But anyway, Podman, if you live in Red Hat, that's what you're guided towards using. Podman is daemonless. Podman does not support Windows containers. Podman only supports Linux containers. Okay, but you can go install the TUI here, and you can also install Podman on Linux. It seems to work just fine. My main caution against using Podman is if you want to use dev containers and you want to use Visual Studio with dev containers and you're using Podman, you're going to have some trouble. You can go and sit there and rename the Podman executable to Docker, and then it should mostly work, except when it doesn't. But you're probably better off just installing Docker. Personally, if your main thing is I want to run dev containers, and do that, right? But anyway, Podman does give you a desktop edition, like a GUI version as well as the CLI version over here. So anyway, we're going to do Podman. Let's see if we can do Podman machine start. And just Podman will run inside of that. And there's a concept, Podman has a concept of running these containers rootless, which is gives you some more security, and it generally works just fine. And by the way, for running containers, they work. I run a Minecraft server on Podman, and it works just fine. And it's as close to production. I've never used Podman for a work related thing, but it runs my kid's Minecraft server, so that's pretty close to production. Anyway, you go set that up, and you do. And the Podman command is completely compatible with the Docker command. So I can go to, just to show you, let's go pull Azure right down here, or Podman, and it's going to pull that down. Right, so here we go. We've got, that works just fine. So that's another way to do it. The final way I'm going to show you, actually the second final way, is there is Rancher Desktop by SUSE. This is a GUI that wrapped around some other options over here. Rancher is Rancher is another alternative to using the Podman desktop if you want to try this. I've used this before. It works just fine. I'm not going to demo it because you're just going to install the GUIs. This gives you some more options with Kubernetes and nerd control that. which finally brings us to our final option. So if you want another open source container solution, you can use Containerd and Nerd Control. Containerd is a container daemon, and Nerd Control is a Docker reimplementation of the Docker CL, basically, to do that, right? So you can install these options. There's some support for Windows containers. Not the most, the Windows container support is not the most mature here. I don't see much of an advantage of doing this locally on your dev machine unless you're already dealing with Nerd Control and Containerd, and then that's part of your whole Kubernetes setup. If that's the case, then totally go for this. Ben, you probably know more about this than I can show you inside a lightning talk, but those are your options over here. You can go here and you can download this. This has certainly some advantages to doing this on Windows Server. Maybe if you want to go with Containerd, Nerd Control as opposed to Docker. But anyway, that's about it. Thanks for coming to my talk. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Check out some of the many other talks.